Lashana Tova, everyone. This is Rabbi Patrick, and I am so thrilled to have you here at our first High Holidays service of the year. I want to thank Adi, who led a terrific class last night on Rosh Hashanah, but this is our first service, so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I think it's just going to be absolutely awesome. It's already been awesome. We have about 18 people with us right now. A lot of people ask me, as an internet rabbi, is it any different than a brick-and-mortar synagogue? And I wouldn't know, actually, because I've never been a rabbi of a brick-and-mortar synagogue. But I will say this. The rule about Jewish Standard Time still applies. It does not matter whether you're online or you are, in a brick-and-mortar community. Everything always starts 5 or 10 minutes late. So I suspect right now we're at 2 after, that we're going to have even more people coming throughout our 1-hour service. So I want to real quick let all of the viewers know, and by viewers I mean people who have not logged in to the chat room. Please log into the chat room. It's very easy. You have lots of different options. You can use Facebook, Twitter. You can create your own username if you're uncomfortable sharing your social media information. Although all of your information is kept confidential, we don't store it or anything like that. But it's crucial that you log in. Now, why is it crucial? Why does it matter? Well, we're different. Clearly, we're online. That's one difference. But the second difference is that we're a community. This is not TV. This is not a play where you sit and have Judaism done at you. I think a lot of times the experience that people have in Jewish community is that Judaism is done at them. They are programmed at. We're different. We're very different. We are as much a community as a brick-and-mortar synagogue. I'm enjoying seeing all of my friends here in the chat room. We have friends of mine personally in Mexico City, in Kurdistan. We have people in, Louisville, Kentucky. We have people from all over. And so I would really encourage you to go ahead, log in the chat room. Let's be friends. Let's connect with each other. That's what we're here to do. It's not just about high holidays, right? It's not just about God, whatever you may think of God as, if you even think of God, right? It's about us. It's about people being together. We're together online in a way that the Hebrews celebrating Rosh Hashanah, giving sacrifices at the temple, could have never thought of. And in their spirit, I think that it is crucial that we get to know one another. So please log into the chat room. We're going to start by saying where we're from. I'd love to see, I know a few people who are in here. We have lots of new faces, a lot of people who aren't regulars here in services. So I'd love it if everyone would, you don't have to say your name because we know your name, but if you'd please let us know where you're from. Where are you hailing from? I mentioned a few people that I know personally, but I'd love to get to know you. So let us know where you're from. In addition to that, we have a High Holidays Maksor. I know it takes a little bit of time to print or to upload. You have to take just a moment, let it kind of do that. But we will go through some of the service before you actually need your Maksor. So I'm going to begin by reading off some of these great cities. So let's see. Joda Maccabee in Sheffield, UK. We have Sarah from Virginia. De Leon, who I mentioned earlier, is in Mexico City. De Leon's music was what was being played before services started, so you should definitely check out his stuff. We've got Michael in Columbus. We've got Darian in Ontario. Rachel from Washington State, where I used to live. Pittsburgh, Bellingham, Washington, another Washingtonian. Connecticut, Florida, yet another Washingtonian. And Kurdistan, Iowa. We have people from Atlanta, that's where I'm from. So we have all kinds of people, and I'm just thrilled. The human race started off in Africa, and we gradually made our way outward, and we went to all of these different places, and some of us settled where we were, and then some of us went out even further, and that's how we populated the world. With the internet, we're coming back home to each other. And I think that's the most exciting thing about living right now. We are all coming home to each other. And it's just terrific. It's just absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. So, I'm going to begin with a little bit of a, you might call it a Dvar Torah. Show of hands, and you can do your own variation on hands. You can comment. You know, we always encourage people to comment here at OneShul. It's the only synagogue that wants you to interrupt service. But we're going to do a show of virtual hands. How many of you remember the first time you used chopsticks? Chopsticks. Does anyone remember their first experience going to a Chinese restaurant, Japanese, Thai, and using chopsticks for the first time? And I'm wondering, was it scary for you? Was it unusual for you? Did you dislike it at first? Was it peculiar? I'd love to get your answers here. Vaguely, some people do remember. Some people, not really scary necessarily, maybe intimidating, maybe confusing would be another word you could use. Frustrating. Thank you, Britt just said frustrating. Rachel or Rachel said it took me a while to get used to. Bash says yes. Okay. So we can all agree it was definitely different if you didn't grow up eating with chopsticks. I was thinking about this when I was thinking about services, and high holiday services, and Shabbat services in general. I'm a rabbi. I've been a Jewish educator for 4 years, and I don't like services. I just don't. I go, I'm uninspired, I'm not terribly engaged. It's what I love about OneShul. Every time I go to OneShul, I'm engaged. You know, it really means a lot to me, and you're the ones who make that possible. Without you, this organization and this community would not exist. So thank you for giving me something to believe in communally. But I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of services in brick-and-mortar communities. And I don't think most people are either. And I'd love to know, please comment what you think about brick-and-mortar services. So why do people dislike services? I've come up with a few ideas. The first is, we don't really know what's going on necessarily, right? We don't necessarily know what's going on. We're confused. We don't necessarily know the blessings, especially if they're in Hebrew, or if we go into a community where we don't necessarily know the customs. It can be a little bit intimidating. And then that leads us to the next part. We don't know if we're doing it right, right? So, do you sit down? Do you stand up? Do you bend? Do you bend this way or this way? Or do you bend this way or this way? It's a lot of stuff, particularly if you didn't grow up with it. And then there's this other idea, I think, that people have, which is that people can see right through them, right? So as Darian is saying, I don't quite fit in yet to the local shuls. So that's a very intimidating feeling, right? You're there, you're sitting in a pew or in a chair or whatever the case may be, and you feel like everyone else can tell that you're the new person, right? Everyone else can tell that you're not quite right in some way or another. Now, is that other people judging you? Or is that you judging yourself and using them as a mirror on yourself? I don't know. Depends on who you are. Those are reasons I think that people don't like services. Not knowing what's going on, not knowing if they're doing it right, and having a sense that everyone else is doing Judaism right, but that you're not doing it right, and that other people can tell. But here's the catch. In a new year, you're invited to new opportunities and new people and new experiences. Fear, I think a lot of times, and a few people are mentioning this, is what keeps us sitting in the back row, right? We sit in the back row of the synagogue. No one will notice us. Of course, then there's the blessing where everyone turns around and faces you and bends forward. So you will get noticed, even if they're noticing your back, right? But I think it's fear that puts us in the back row. Fear, like the fear that we sometimes have with religion, keeps us from truly being human and embracing those next steps, which is what Rosh Hashanah is all about. Fear makes us feel like we're not sure what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen to us next. We lack any confidence in our own ability as people to do what we need to do. And we're sure by social comparison that everyone else is doing it, and by it I mean life, better than us. But when we step out of our boundaries, when we step out of that sort of threefold fear factor, the fear factor you may have the first time you use chopsticks, or when you go to a synagogue service, or you start a new job, or a new school, when we step out of that fear bubble, we leave our boundaries, and we reach transcendence. No one has ever become enlightened because they took the right college class. No one has ever become enlightened because they followed instructions in a book. It's something you have to experience by taking yourself out of your boundaries. Transcendence, glory, enlightenment, whatever word you want to use, comes from opening ourselves up and by being vulnerable to life's challenges. The Torah uses a metaphor, circumcising your heart. Now, if you're a biblical literist, I assume that when you read circumcise your heart, you think, oh, it's God's commandment to perform open heart surgery. But that's obviously not true. It's a metaphor. The Bible is poetry. We have to step outside of our boundaries. We have to remove that exterior whatever it is that keeps us from being vulnerable and truly entering into a transcendent place. Now, if you're at all familiar with high holiday services, in the formal synagogue setting, and let's show some hands if you are, then this service might be a little strange for you. This is a different service, definitely a different service than you might be used to. Our readings are short, but the conversations that I hope to see in the chat room are long. The size of our group is smaller than a lot of synagogues. We have about 20-something people right now, not including the people who haven't logged in, or the people who will be coming gradually, or coming to other services. So the size of our group is smaller, but the depth of our relationships can be deep. And they can be breathtakingly huge. The size of our relationships can absolutely overwhelm the number of people who are actually here. We're different at OneShul because you're different. And you are OneShul. And it's your spirit that is the star of this Rosh Hashanah service. So I'd like to welcome you on this, our Jewish New Year, our Rosh Hashanah, and to this evening where together as friends we open ourselves up to the extraordinary potential that each of us has. Lashana Tova. Hopefully by now you've had an opportunity to download the Maksur. And if not, I promise that there's going to be other things going on other than just me. So if for some reason you're having any internet problems, perhaps you're in a place that doesn't have particularly good internet, you aren't alone, and you will have fun, I promise. I'm going to start with the Shehekianu. The Shehekianu is always said when you've had a new experience. For me personally, this is my first Rosh Hashanah service of the year. So, the top of page 2 in your Siddur. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehekianu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Think of the number of people who have brought you to this place in your life. This time is what this talks about. It talks about being grateful for being where we are, even if where we are is not a particularly great place. But where you are right at this moment, where you are right now, you exist here in this time and in this place because somebody loved you, because someone thought the world of you. Someone put themselves before, or put you before themselves. Okay? And that's true love. That's what true love is. Now, how did this person, whether it was a parent or a grandparent, aunts, uncles, teachers, a boss maybe, how were they able to prop you up? How were they able to lift you up to a place that was meaningful and so that you could move forward? Well, they were able to do that because someone did it for them, right? And this chain of love goes all the way back to the beginning of time. And if you're of this particular religious persuasion, then this chain of love goes all the way back to the beginning of time. And it reminds us that the universe is built with love and commitment and fidelity in mind, and that these are religious values that we should live up to, regardless of what kind of Jew or non-Jew we are. We're going to move to the Barhu, which is page 3. However, we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to have some music by Jew Man Group. I hope you enjoy it.
I've got my head face down in my parasha, and I'm like, Baku, I'm a Jew. Being a moil or a shocking won't be enough, so I'm like, Baku, and Yismehu. I said it's my bar mitzvah, I'll celebrate with ya, with David and Shakaris. And though we ain't facing west, I still greet all my guests with the Baku. Calamari, and the caterer catches the silverware. Whether in the city or on a safari, it don't matter, cause you can pray anywhere. Step into the shoe and sit down in a pew. Wow, ooh, there's lots of Jews with you. Yeah, let's see if you say wait till the end. I've got my head face down in my parasha, and I'm like, Baku, I'm a Jew. Being a loyal or a shocking won't be enough, so I'm like, Baku, and Yismehu. I said it's my bar mitzvah, I'll celebrate with ya, with David and Shakaris. And though we ain't facing west, I still greet all my guests with the tomorrow. My after runs if falls complete. Chant the Torah, dance the horror, cause pay for all of this food ain't cheap. Step into the shoe and sit down in a pew. Wow, ooh, there's lots of Jews with you. Ooh, I really love to make Kiddush about now. I've got my head face down in my parasha, and I'm like, Baku, I'm a Jew. Being a loyal or a shocking won't be enough, so I'm like, Baku, and Yismehu. I said it's my bar mitzvah, I'll celebrate with ya, with David and Shakaris. And though we ain't facing west, I still greet all my guests with the Baku. Now Zadie, why you looking so sad? You are plotting with my booby, then she told me, yeah, she did. And he's like, hi, Zadie, yeah. I love Jews, I still love Jews. Oh, so now I'm walking around town with my yarmulke. I'm a Jew. The books of Moses and the prophets ain't easy stuff. Now I'm like, I'm a Jew, and so are you. Now it says in the Mishnah, let's go make a mitzvah. It all started at my breast. Now that you all been impressed, I'll keep doing my best. Now that I'm a Jew.
So it's definitely a different way of doing Barhu, that's for sure. Bottom of page 3, we'll do the Baruch Hu together. Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. And there's a quote here at the bottom, and an interpretation of Mariv. I look up at the night sky, and I know that yes, we are part of this universe. We are in this universe. But perhaps more important than both of those facts is that the universe is in us. Tonight, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go outside. And when you're outside, I want you to find some stars. Doesn't matter which ones, but find some stars. I want you to look at these stars. And I want you to contemplate this meditation. We are made of carbon, right? We're carbon-based life forms. Carbon didn't just sort of appear. It actually came out of the death of stars. So stars that existed billions of years ago collapsed in on themselves. And this is how the stuff that makes us was formed. If you look at the stars, take your hands and put them up against the sky. And try to spread your fingers out so that it's like you're touching those stars. And think about this. There's a little carbon atom on your hand, on this hand, the right hand, as it touches a star. This little carbon atom came from a star that died a billion years ago. That would eventually become your hand. And then take your other hand, put it up at a different part of the sky, and think about a carbon atom from a completely different galaxy, in a completely different star, that collapsed in on itself and became you. Everything in the universe is made of the same stuff. But what makes it all unique, what gives us plants, different kinds of animals, rocks, buildings, cups of coffee, whatever, is not the stuff in it, but it's the relationships that make things work together, that make things beautiful. You are beautiful because of relationships. Different kinds of relationships came together to create you and to create everything that's in the universe. That's why Judaism teaches the importance of covenantal relationships. All these relationships make everything beautiful, whether it's the laws of nature or the laws of human nature or the laws of religious nature. It's relationships that make everything good. And that's why it's so important that we take care of each other. Because just as the universe has created all of these exciting, wonderful, dynamic things like you and Miley Cyrus or whatever, so can you make beautiful things. But it all has to happen because of relationships. Relationships. And that's what we're doing online. Online, right now, we all have a relationship to each other. That's why I hope that as you're chatting with people in the chat room, you'll click on their picture and you'll friend them on Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be. We need to stick together. We need to help each other. We need to have relationships with one another. We now have Ahavat Olam, page 4, top of page 4. us say the Shema together, talking about the idea of things being in relationship to each other. There's very few words in the Shema. And it's kind of funny that it became our sort of central blessing, our central saying, our central prayer, when it doesn't really actually say much. It just says, "Hear, O Israel," or "Listen, Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." That's all it says. That's not a particularly profound theological statement, because we're monotheists. It's not, any kind of secret, revealed, amazing wisdom, anything like that. It's sort of a riddle, in a way. There's very limited amount of stuff in the Shema. There's actually very few characters in the Shema. Very few Hebrew letters. But it's beautiful because of the way it's constructed. Just like how everything in the world is beautiful, not because of the stuff that's in it, but because of the way it's constructed. We say together, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol lavavcha v'kol nafshecha v'kol me'otecha v'chayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinatam levavecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'etecha Uvlechtecha vaderech, uvshochbecha, uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vechayum letotafot beinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha, uvihisharecha. We have several options for our Amida, for our silent standing prayer. If you look on page 5, you're going to find some different kinds of meditations. If you look on page 9, you're going to find a more traditional liturgy. So depending on where you are in life, hopefully there's something in the standing prayer that will speak to you. Let's take a look at what some people are saying. Lisa Levy just said that was my baby's first Shema. Well, Mazel Tov. That is fantastic. I'm so honored that we got to experience that. I'm over the moon excited about that. That is so cool. We have some other great comments here. Joda says, "What amazes me, though, is how artistically precise it all is. Like, how can the human body be put together so intricately?" It's true. Jenny Starr says, "Stars are the factories of the universe." Absolutely. And she also says, "I'm, of course, preferential to any tales of stars." Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's a marvelous world that we live in. And see, what I was saying earlier about relationships is coming true. We now have a relationship to Lisa's baby forever because we got to experience the baby's first Shema. Just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. This is why OneShul is so terrific, that we have these really great opportunities. Let's take a moment to do our Amidah. When you are done, we'll move to the top of page 6. Adonai sivatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatacha. Every moment of our lives, the sacred house of our life, the constructs by which we live and to which we hold on so fiercely, nevertheless falls away. Every moment we take in a breath and the world comes into being, and we let out a breath and the world falls away. By Alan Liu. One voice in bitterness, one voice in joy, one voice explaining, one voice complaining, one voice in the ecstasy of having not this makes 5. One voice soothing, one voice urging, one voice having, one voice doubling, one voice silent for the world to come. This makes 10. Roger Kemmons. When someone deeply listens to you, it is like holding out a dented cup you have had since childhood and watching it fill up with cold, fresh water. When it balances on the top of the rim, you're understood. When it overflows and touches your skin, you are loved. When someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you wrote your first poem begins to glow in your mind's eye. It's as if gold has been discovered. When someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and the beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Gadol, Hagibor v'Anora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovin, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Asdei Avot v'Imot, V'Mei Gomel Livnei V'Hem, Man Shmo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer, Mashiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'eretz Zerah. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for all of us and for all of Israel and for all who dwell on earth, and say Amen. Oh, say Shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru, Amen. We now move to middle of page 6 with Avinu Malkeinu. So Avinu Malkeinu literally means our Father, our King. Now, this is a very old metaphor for God. And it's a metaphor that doesn't necessarily work for a lot of people anymore. I know it certainly doesn't work for me. But I'd like to think about something for a minute. I was at a retreat recently, a scholars retreat. Actually, it's called Limud. It's a terrific Jewish learning weekend. And it was just terrific fun. I was teaching, and I was enjoying the wilderness, and I was eating lots of food, meeting lots of great people. And one of the people that I had the pleasure of meeting was Richard Elliott Friedman, or as he likes to be called, Dick Friedman. And he is probably the greatest living biblical scholar. And he was doing this really great class on Exodus, and his argument that he makes is that the Exodus is a historical event, which a lot of biblical scholars don't believe, but that it happened in a different kind of way, and he went into explaining what that was about. That's not what's necessarily important, though, for today. What he said that really struck me is he was talking about the way that the Bible came together. And he said, you know, human beings wrote poetry long before they ever wrote prose or history. Let's think about that for a minute. Before we ever wrote down what was actually going on, court history, the history of kings and queens, religious history, before we wrote down any of that, we wrote poetry. Before mythology, before history, before family dynasties, we wrote poetry. What is poetry? Poetry is song. It's songs. We wrote poetry before we wrote anything. The human race is wired to write poems, to tell stories through metaphor, through allegory. That's the way we are. It's what's built into us. It is the truest expression of ourselves. And you know, one of the things that I think is terrific when we encounter something like Avinu Malkeinu or some other type of poetic liturgy that just doesn't quite work. We don't want to think of God as a king. We don't want to think of God as a father. It's just too, it just doesn't quite line up. Remember that it's a poem. And that this poem, just like all the other poems that we've read and sung, is a part of you. In the same way that that little carbon atom is a part of you, right? This is part of you. Liturgy comes from the experience of life, and it comes from the power and the energy of the world. And I call this power and energy God. You may not, but I do. And this poem is literally, in a certain kind of way, the best way to describe an experience. I'll give you another example. Imagine you were going to write a love letter, or maybe you have written a love letter. Show of hands in the chat room if you've ever written a love letter. So imagine that you're going to write a love letter. You've been in a relationship, a marriage, or a partnership for 10 years, right? You've been in it for a long time. And you sit down, you go to sit down, and you decide to write the most literal love letter that you can. So this love letter says, Dear Sarah, I don't know, I'm making this up. Dear Sarah, I would like to thank you for having an initial dopamine reaction when you met me. And I am glad that in spite of the fact that I have gained 20 pounds and have lost half of my hair and have clearly frustrated you as a partner by not doing the dishes and by forgetting to take out the trash and hogging the remote and all of these things, that you continue to carry on a civil relationship with me where we sleep in the same bed and own the same property, and 50% of your stuff is my stuff, and that you have continued to uphold a legal responsibility to care for our children for the sake not only of their needs, but of the social contract that we have made as a couple. Yours truly, John. Right? You would never write that love letter. That would be the worst love letter ever. You'd get thrown out of the house if it was Valentine's Day. You'd have to make up for it big time, right? So romantic, right? You don't write that poem. You don't write that love letter. What do you write instead? Here's what you write. I would swim with sharks for you. I would climb the highest mountain in the world. I would wrestle a grizzly bear while baking a cake and learning Latin for you. It doesn't matter, right? You would write the most over-the-top, profound, powerful comments you could make. Those poems, that way of expressing yourself is more true than talking about dopamine and a civil marriage and social responsibility. Talking about wrestling grizzly bears and climbing mountains and chasing the sun, lassoing it and pulling it in. That's the good stuff. That is the truth. That is real. It has kavod. It has weight in a way that the truth doesn't in some cases. That's why you can say Avinu Malkeinu even if you think that there is no spirituality and there is no substance to anything other than what you can see. Because it's true, because poetry is true, because liturgy and song and love letters are true, because metaphors are true. When someone runs fast, they aren't like a deer, they are a deer. When someone wrestles someone to the ground, they aren't like a bear, they are a bear. That is true life, even if it's not literal life. I now present to you Avinu Malkeinu. Very powerful. We now join together for the Elenu. The melody is the same that you've heard before. The words are a little bit different, so don't get tripped up. And hopefully I won't get tripped up either. Alenu lishabeach ladon hakol latet gedula leotzer breshit shenatan lanu Torah emet v'chaye olam nata betochenu v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Take a moment to think about those who are in need of healing. I'm thinking especially of all the people around the world who are the victims of bondage, of suffering, people who are the victims of terrorism, not just in Israel, but everywhere in the world. People whose mind, body, and spirit are crushed and in need of repair. And hopefully we can be the ones who can repair their suffering. Please, if you have any names of anyone that you know who is in need of healing, put their name in the chat room. Additionally, I would encourage you to read our prayer request wall, and I'll post it here for you. These are people in our community who need us, and we need to pray for them. We need to keep those people in mind at all times. I now present to you Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Avotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheverach imotenu b'kol habracha l'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
So we keep in mind those who need healing. Jess Reagan, Rhoda, Abraham Ben Yaakov, Peter, all the Jews who have to hide who they are, Sherry, Sid, Rufus, Catherine Bellamy, Dorothy, Arava, DNF, Pamela Landis, our guest's husband, Carl. We think of all of those people who are in need of healing. We wish them a speedy healing of mind, body, and spirit. And let us all say, Amen. We move now to the next memorial. Call it a Yizkor, call it a Kaddish, call it what you'd like. This is an opportunity to think of those who have passed away, the people who have meant a lot to us, or maybe just people we've met in passing. The Kaddish is a teaching I like to give all the time. The Kaddish is interesting because we say it several times. We say it in a lot of different ways. What's really fascinating about it is the fact that it doesn't mention death at all. It says, let God's name be great and holy in the world that God willed. May God complete the holy realm in our lifetime. May God's name be blessed. May it be blessed, praised, glorified. It says all sorts of things like that. It never talks about death. So Shlomo Karlovac, of blessed memory, used to say something interesting. He used to say, well, you look at I guess this is the fourth verse down, or the fourth paragraph down. It says, La'ela, in our case, La'ela, La'ela. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Blessings beyond all words. It goes back to what we talked about earlier, about poetry. The fact that the author of this text is trying to come up with some sort of poetic approximation for what it must mean to live in a perfect world, to live in a perfect, holy world, the kind of world that we should want in our lifetime. And for all of the things that are said, universal peace, harmony, greatness and holiness, it sticks there in the center something interesting. It says, beyond all words. Blessings beyond all words. Why? And Shlomo Karlbach would say, well, when you say Kaddish, it is not you who is saying Kaddish. You are actually saying Kaddish on behalf of the deceased. You are saying what they would say if they could tell you what perfect bliss is like. And it is in that spirit that we draw the deceased people nearer to us, closer to us. It's not just about thinking about them, it's about thinking about what they would be thinking if they could talk to us. And they do it through the poetry and through the emotional experience of the Kaddish. If you have a name of someone that you have in mind for Kaddish, we keep, of course, in mind all of the victims of the Holocaust and of all forms of genocide around the world, the victims of terrorism both in Israel and everywhere in the world. And we also keep in mind those who do not have living relatives to say Kaddish for them. Yit Gadal Yit Gadash Shemei Rabbah Bialma Divrach Kirotei V'Yamlich Malkutei B'Chayachon V'Yomechon Uv Chaye Dekol Bet Yisrael B'Agala Uvizman Kariv V'Imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivorak Le'olam U'Me'al Maya Yit Barak V'Yishtabak V'Yitpa'ar V'Yitramam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitalal Shmei Dekudesha Brichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechamata Damiram Bi'alma V'Imru Amen Yehei Shlam Rabbah Min Shemaya V'Chayim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen Aseh Shalom B'Ramav Huya Aseh Shalom Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. And in that blessing we remember Karen W., Esther Bas David, Noah, Britt's grandfather Warren Roche, several people whom Darian has visited in the nursing home who have since passed away, and Darian's grandmother Rita, Carl's grandmother Mary Lee Sherrod, and his dad Carl Sherrod. We keep those names. Carl's cousin's son Jordan, who died this year, Susie Marie Woods' mother-in-law. We keep all of those and others in our hearts as collectively together we say, Amen. So I want to thank all of you for coming to this Rosh Hashanah service. This is, however, not the end. We have a lot of great stuff going on. So at 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, so that's New York time, Atlanta time, North Carolina time, Florida time, we have an 8 o'clock service with Ketzira. Now, if you like sort of rainbow family, Jewish renewal, earth-based spirituality, I highly recommend going to her service. So that's from 8 to 9. And then tomorrow evening, we're going to have a text study. We're not going to have a service. We're going to have a text study. So we're going to be studying Genesis for Rosh Hashanah Day reading. So that's going to be Thursday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Eastern Daylight Time. Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have another text study. And of course, we also have our Yom Kippur services, and we have classes and all kinds of great stuff going on for Yom Kippur. So I highly recommend going to these services. There's all kinds of great stuff. If you have downloaded the Machzor, all of the services, all of the classes and everything that I'm doing are in that Machzor. If you want to go to one of Ketzira's services, she has a different Machzor. So what you need to do is contact Ketzira at plapalm.com, or you can go to plapalm.com, and she'll be able to connect with you and give you her Machzor. But of course, she'll also have it available for download when you are in the chat room, just like we did today. But if you want to connect with her early, that's how you want to do that. Now, last but not least, it requires a lot of financial resources to keep this community together. We have everything available for free because we don't have high holidays tickets, right? Because we don't charge you for a prayer request, because we don't charge you for the Yarzite plaques, because we don't use those things, because we don't believe in those things. We have to ask for your donations because we don't have a way that we can take money from you. We don't have membership fees. We don't have Hebrew school fees. Everything comes from your love, and it comes from your heart, and it comes from the relationship that you want to have with Judaism and with this community. So I would encourage you, at the top of our website here, we have a PayPal donation button. All you have to do is click. And every bit helps. Every bit helps. We have 10 High Holidays events. 10 opportunities. This is number 2. So we had a class last night, but this is only event number 2. We have 8 more events to go, and then next year, in this next year, I should say, we have all kinds of things going on. We're going to have Saturday morning Shachrit services. We're going to have Torah study. We're going to have Kabbalat Shabbat ceremony services. We're going to start doing even more amazing, profound stuff. In order to make that happen, you have to give. And I'll tell you a story. I have a friend who is a conservative rabbi, and he was talking about a nonprofit organization that he was working on, a Jewish cultural organization. And things were getting a little rough for them. It was hard for them to get money in. And I said, well, how are you going to handle this? What are you going to do? And he said, well, here's how this works. You sit around and you think, gee, we'd love to have this event, or we'd love to have this service, or we'd like to have this nonprofit. And you get together and you raise a little bit of money and you start it, and people are excited. But then after a while, they get used to you being around, and they get used to not donating. They get used to not giving. And then you go away. And then what happens is 6 months down the road, people sit around and they go, I wonder whatever happened to that organization. And that's what happens. That's how charities die. That's how religious communities die. Because it just sort of is assumed that they'll always be there. You don't really think about it anymore. Right? They'll always be there. There will always be Rivka. There will always be Katsira. There will always be Adi. There will always be Chana, and all of the people who volunteer. They'll always be here. OneShul will always be here, right? It'll only be here if you give. That is the only way it'll happen. So I would please encourage you to give. We are able to operate for far less than most synagogues and most Jewish communities because we're online. So I would encourage you to give some donation. Doesn't have to be a lot. Every little bit helps. $1 gives Jewish life to 3 people for a year. So think about that. If you only give $1, that's 3 Jewish lives you've impacted. And that's pretty powerful, I think. Also, we need your time. Time is crucial. We need more volunteers to lead services like this. We need more volunteers to edit ebooks. We need more volunteers to do online promotion. We need more volunteers to teach classes. We need more volunteers. So if you want to help, please send me an email, patrick@punktorah.org. Someone asked, is there a way to give without using PayPal? The answer is yes. You send me an email and I'll send you a link. We don't have other credit card, debit card type systems on the website because more people use PayPal. I don't know why. I've tried to get us off PayPal. The second I get us off PayPal, people freak out. So I leave us on PayPal. In spite of the fact that everyone says they hate PayPal, for some reason OneShul people love PayPal. But you can use a credit card with that PayPal link. You don't have to have PayPal in order to donate with PayPal. So again, thank you so much for coming. This was an honor to be here. Make sure to come to tonight's service. It's going to be completely different than the service that you had here. Mostly because Katsira has a beautiful singing voice and I don't. So please come. I wish you all a wonderful, sweet, prosperous Jewish New Year. Lashana Tova.